Wow. So, hi, everyone, and welcome once again to Books for My Soul Meet the Author, where we get to meet our favorite authors and we interact with them one-on-one. Today, we have with us Doris Murimi, who's actually a good friend of mine. I've known her for many years, and I'm so delighted to be able to share her book with you. It's a book that I have personally enjoyed and I have learned a lot from. And to be honest, Doris, I am about to even recommend it to my teenage daughters, but I won't get into that. I'll let you speak more about it. So karibu sana, Doris.
Asante, thank you very, very much for hosting me. And I'm so glad to be here to discuss about this book, When Something is Wrong. Yes.
Wonderful. Yes, When Something is Wrong. Doris, this is your first book. But you know, it is such a beautiful, well-written book. I have learned so much from it. And I remember when I first had flipping through it, I came across two stories which you've shared very early in the book. One is about a girl called Jackie, a Kenyan girl who took her own life because of what we now know as period shaming.
Yes.
And then another is of a lady, a teacher called Wendy in the UK, who had such a hard time with her menstrual cycle.
Yes.
That, you know, she actually did something about it. She wrote a book about it and has really shared her experience about it.
Yes.
So this book is about menstrual disorders, a very important topic for young girls, for mature ladies, for even men and boys, because it's something that affects, if it affects you, it affects your entire family.
For
So
sure.
Doris, I'll ask you to share your story first. How did what caused you to write this book, Doris?
Okay, thank you so much. Well, what caused me to write this book was because I never got out of being a 13, 12-year-old girl who had periods that were horrible, so painful. I mean, that trauma, I've lived with it even until today, until this age, because I just had very bad periods and very heavy, and we just didn't understand what the problem was. And when I even told my mom, who was very good and took me to 4 different gynecologists, all of them just say that, oh, some girls can't really withstand period pain, and, when she has a baby, the pain will go away. And and of course, it never went away. It never went away. And years later, I was able to discover that I had first adenomyosis and then endometriosis, and later in life, even fibroids. I actually had all 3 at the same time. And it was just a horrible, horrible experience. But what I think for me was shocking was that the narrative has always been that periods are normal. There is nothing like abnormal menstruation. So we as girls growing up, even if you have a lot of pain, if you have a lot of bleeding, the narrative is the same. It's normal, Even our parents have said the same thing. The parents before them, our grandparents, it's been the same thing, But I now discovered somewhere around in my early 40s, I discovered that there were conditions caused by something known as secondary dysmenorrhea. Because there's what we know as dysmenorrhea, which is really painful periods. But with dysmenorrhea, which is one of the menstrual disorders, with dysmenorrhea, there is primary dysmenorrhea, which is the kind of pain or discomfort that a girl or a woman can have when in the process of when the egg is moving, before then if it's not fertilized, then it will cause the lining of the uterus to shed, and that is what is known as a period. So there is that, and that discomfort when the egg is moving, when there is that a chemical reaction of or I think they call it prostaglandins. When there's that reaction, can cause some discomfort, some some irritation, some cramping for the women. But there's something else known as secondary dysmenorrhea, which is not as a direct result to the process, to that ovulation process. It's caused by another underlying cause. And those underlying causes could be endometriosis, it could be adenomyosis, it could be fibroids, it could be polyps, it could be PCOS, it could be all these other conditions. And that is where the issue of concern is. It's very important for girls to be evaluated early so that you determine what kind of dysmenorrhea does she have. Is it primary or is it secondary? And if it's secondary, which, what is the underlying condition so that the girl can start getting assistance. But because we hadn't been talking about it and people didn't know much about it, it was assumed that every woman only had primary dysmenorrhea. So, and that's been where the problem has been. So shedding light, this book is now about shedding light about that difference and letting people know that there is actually something as abnormal menstruation or what we now call menstrual disorders or menstrual irregularities, and actually the 4 categories is that dysmenorrhea I talked about, abnormal uterine bleeding, because there are some who will just bleed a lot and there's no other underlying condition. There is premenstrual syndrome. You remember we used to always joke even in school, PMS.
PMS, right?
PMS,
yes.
Isn't it?
It was a joke, but it was a condition. I mean,
it's a condition.
Serious. Yeah.
Yes, it's a condition, and there is what is like normal, what is maybe considered as the normal PMS, the mood swings and that kind of thing. But there's also premenstrual dysphoric disorder, which happens also in women who it's like you're losing your mind, like you go into a rage, or like you're really depressed and you can't work, you can't relate. I mean, it makes you be like somebody else, and such people require psychiatric care. They actually need to be on medication to help balance the chemical, Yeah.
What I like about your book?
Yes.
All of these terms, they seem so difficult, But I like your book because you started even at the basic by explaining what is the menstrual cycle, the biological function and so on. And then you come to all of these terms. You explain even those that you mentioned right now, which I must say we've probably forgotten because there are so many different ones. But what I like about your book is that you've spent time on each of them so that we understand them. And when I was thinking about your book, and I thought, my goodness, you start by saying that you suffered for 30 years before you, before you understood what was wrong. But then I also loved that you wrote it in such an interesting style. Tell us why you chose to write it the way you did.
Interestingly enough, I think that age of 12, 13 and going through it, I have never forgotten how I saw the world, how I saw learning about this information, how what I suffered through. I've never forgotten that feeling of anxiety, confusion and all that. And so I chose to write the book with that, through those eyes. And
through the eyes of young girls, and you've even included boys,
Yes, girls and boys in a learning atmosphere. What shocked me is that, I mean, my parents did not know anything any better. They were not taught in school. Our generation has not been taught in school. Our children are not being taught in school. I said, come on, somebody has got to break this somewhere and actually push and lobby for it to be included in schools and just share this information. And obviously, how would you tell it to a young girl? Because that's the most affected generation, that kind of 12, 13. It has to be in a very engaging way.
So let me just tell our viewers, our reading audience, that Doris has written this story, this book in form of a story. And that makes it such a light, easy, and interesting read. And another thing about this book, which I'm so glad, Doris, you are able to do, is that it has been approved by KICD for grade 8, right?
Yes.
And in fact, I think the children that you use in the story to tell your story are about that age.
That age, yes.
Early teenage, and you take us through it so well. So I'm so glad it's going to be part of the grade 8 learnings, because it's really going to be of benefit to young girls, but even as we keep in even young boys.
Even boys,
They
yes,
need to have this information. Yeah.
yes, yeah.
Another thing I really appreciate about your book, Doris, is that as you come to the end of it, you share your own testimony, and you end it on a very nice note, on a note of faith, you know,
Yes, yes,
because even as we go through these things, and like your journey, like I mentioned, was 30 years, it's so important to know that God is with us throughout, isn't it?
yes, yes.
Yeah, so
In
share a little
fact,
bit. Mhm.
in fact, I had to write that chapter because some of these conditions, like endometriosis, adenomyosis, they have no cure, you know, especially like endometriosis. Maybe fibroids can be removed, but they may grow back again. You know, adenomyosis requires like uterus removal, but endometriosis really has got no cure. And I think
Right.
even a condition like PCOS. So sometimes women are battling, and girls are also battling a lot of pain, and they don't know. I mean, where do you turn to when the doctor has told you that there is no cure? He can give you
Right.
painkillers, but even those painkillers don't work. So we know that our God is our healer, and we know that
Yes.
He is the all and all.
Mhm.
So and you know, it's so interesting about how God covers everything. If you look even in the Bible, there's the story of the woman with the issue of blood. And I tell you,
Blood.
I am convinced she had endometriosis. But
It's likely. Yes, it's
yes,
likely.
yes, but we are taken through that story. You can see she went through every treatment. She saw doctors until her money got finished, you know. She
Yeah.
saw all the physicians, and none could help her. None
Yeah.
at all could help her, you know,
Yeah.
until the time her faith took her to go and touch the hem
Yeah.
of Jesus. And that is where she received her healing, you know. And then it was interesting that even after she had touched the hem of his garment and received instantly, she felt the blood dry up, and she felt that she was instantly healed. You know,
Yes.
the Lord asked, "Who touched me?" You know, because he felt power had come from him. You know, and
Yes.
she was very scared, but she gave testimony. She had the courage to say, yes, it was me. And then she explained now what she had gone through. And really, that was the first step of, that was a testimony that she was giving. So even
Yeah.
me, after being healed, because first of all, I believe I was miraculously healed because I had gone through so much, and I
Mm.
had told the Lord I couldn't take it anymore. So I actually went into early menopause by, I think, 47. 48, which
Mhm.
for me, I felt was just wonderful. I have friends who are 54 who are still, who
Yeah.
they're nowhere near menopause. So for me,
Right. Mm.
so for me, I believe that the Lord really, really, came through for me by just taking me into early menopause. So,
Yeah.
I wanted girls and women to have hope that, the Lord can do anything. I mean, I'm not saying that the girls should wait until they are 50 something or 40 something to get into menopause, but just to know that the Lord, this has happened. They're not the first people to go through it.
Mm.
It was there in
Yeah.
the Bible, and she got divine healing.
Yeah.
So it's possible that even today it can happen even for them,
I
just
love it.
praying and believing. Yeah.
I love it. I love your book. I love the way you've come at the topic, the way you've taken us through each of them,
Mhm.
explained them through the eyes of young boys and young girls. And,
Mhm.
you've brought us to a wonderful conclusion that even with all this,
Yes,
even with all these conditions, even with all the pain, even with all the medication that we have to go through, even with sometimes even surgery,
yes,
God is still there. God
yes.
is still there. And what a wonderful note to end the book on, and even our chat today.
Yes.
And I just want to ask Doris, if you have a copy, you can show us and let us know how we can get a copy.
Okay.
I have seen it, and in fact, when I saw you today, I knew this is about, you call it Endo Sisters. The
Yes,
color is
yes.
yellow, right?
Yellow. Yes.
Yeah, show us a copy of the book. I know it's almost the same.
Yes, 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 yes.
Yeah.
So this is the book. As you can
Yeah.
see, it's approved by KICD, and it's
Right.
really the image of a girl, that
Uh-huh.
13-year-old girl she's sad. Look at her demeanor. She's sad
Yeah.
because she's going through something that she can't understand. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And it's a book that I've described here that, it's there even for to integrate in rites of passage programs. We even in our churches, the rites of passage program, this is such an interesting book to share with those going through that particular period, to understand and to learn, and of course in schools, in for patient advocacy, even with doctors. Yeah. So just a powerful book that will really be of help to many people. We will be stocking them at Books Kenya, which is in Kilimani Mall. Yeah, it's a school textbook here. Yeah, at Kilimani Mall. So that's they'll be there from mid next month. Probably by end of next month, we should have stocked them there as well. Yeah.
Wonderful. How much can we expect to pick it up on Books for My Soul, and then that's for the ebook, and then the physical copy? How much do we expect to pick it up at?
Okay, so for the ebook, we are giving a really good discounted price of 700 shillings, and then for the hard copies, we are selling at 1,000. But for bulk copies, they can also get it at 700 shillings per copy.
Oh, wonderful, Doris! Thank you so much. It's such a joy, always such a joy to connect with you, and to just speak to you. And you have so much passion. And your desire to even help and impact young lives is so clear and so abundant. So we thank you for that. We ask the Lord to continue to bless you and expand your boundaries. And may this book reach the hands of every young girl, every young woman, even the boys and men who are in their lives, so that many questions can be answered. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Yeah. So thank you so much for being with us. As you heard, you can get a copy of Doris's book, When Something Is Wrong, on Books for My Soul for 700 shillings. And a hard copy, you can visit the bookshops that Doris mentioned, or contact her through her social media, and you can pick up a copy from there. Thank you, and see you next time.
Thank you.